Welcome to another exciting episode of bringing Jesus back into focus. He was taken out of focus by the early corrupt church leaders around the 4th century under Constantine's rule in Rome, bringing the Old Testament Jewish religion God Yahweh, the two-headed God Yahweh, and laying it on top of Jesus and the divine loving spiritual creator of Jesus, who is only love. He never used the word Yahweh, Jesus, to describe this divine, beautiful spiritual being. He couldn't, because there are two Yahwehs in the Jewish religion. It is not a monotheistic religion. The Romans had the war god Mars and the god of peace and love Pax, two different temples, two different forces, two different energies, evil, black, murdering, stealing land. The Romans, war god. They'd sacrifice an animal at the war god's temple Mars, go off to war and kill and steal land and everything. The Jews, when they went to war at Jericho, they go to the temple, get the blessing of the priest, sacrifice an animal, and go off to Jericho, kill everyone, and steal all the silver and gold and take it back to the temple of Yahweh. That Yahweh is the exact same war god as Mars, the Greek god Ares war god, Sekhmet, the Egyptian war god. They are all the same. They're all killers, murderers, and thieves. That's Yahweh. One. The confusion comes about because the Jews were dishonest. Everyone else called their God of peace and love by a different name. It's a different energy. Love, peace, non-violence. The Jews decided to call their love, peaceful God, not Amore, or something like that, and have another temple to go to when they wanted to make peace with people and love people, as they should have anyway. Instead, they decided to call that God, different energy, different direction, different identity, different way to live. They called that God by the same name as the war god, Yahweh. So you've got two heads, completely opposing forces, dark, evil, against the white light of the goodness, on the one monotheistic body called Yahweh. Now the Jewish Christian churches, I left the Jewish Christian Catholic Church when I was 16 or 17 because of this lie. Once I reached the age of reason, I was out of there. They were saying there's only one God in the entire Bible, and the Bible is made up of the Jewish religion anyway, and the Christian religion. What's that doing there anyway? I thought, we're not Jews. Why do we have to study that? Jesus' words are enough. He described this divine loving spiritual world of love and this divine mind and consciousness, living being, general term God, I say loving spiritual creator. He described this being. And it's not Yahweh, because listen to his description. Her love is like the sun that rises on the good and on the evil. Her love is like the rain that falls on the just and the unjust. She is kind even to the ungrateful and the evil. Unless your love is as perfect as her love, you will not enter her world. Jesus is telling us all there's a loving world that's only love. We can all go there. He explains in his teachings you've got two bodies. One's going to die and you may as well feed it to the vultures because that's all it's worth, and he says so in the Gospels. It's there for everyone to read. The Jewish Christian churches wash over it. They don't like to draw your attention to that. The other body is your spiritual body, and that's taken to be near to. They've even cut out the words of where it's taken to. And Jesus' answer about where that body's gone, that's also been removed. You see, you have two bodies, one spiritual. But it's only alive because it's empowered by a loving spiritual life force. You can eat all the potatoes and pumpkins in the world and beans and peas and fish or whatever you want to eat. It'll have no effect on your spiritual life force body. That's all earthly food for your earthly body that dies. What you need is the spiritual loving life force from heaven to empower your spiritual body to have life. That comes from this incredible spiritual consciousness of love. And the only way to receive it is, as Jesus said, if you're clean, if your mind is clean. Clean of what? Clean of hatred, clean of war, clean of killing, murder, stealing, worshipping money. All these things are filthy dirt, stink up your cup. The loving life force is poisoned even if it got into it, but you block it anyway. It can't enter. So I had to write about it because I went back to some churches about 4 or 5 years ago. I started investigating after I got this lung infection of fungus. And I thought, I wonder what everyone else was teaching Jesus about Jesus. I only heard the Catholic version. And I was absolutely shocked. I went to about 5 or 6 different denominations. And I was stunned. Some of them were literally synagogues. All they talked about was the old Jewish religion, how God helped the Jews kill everyone here, and oh, well, that was wonderful. But then they offered him the wrong peanut butter sandwich or something, and then, oh, they lost that battle, and God made sure they all got punished for that because they offered him the wrong thing. I just, why are you teaching that? We're not Jews. We're Christians. Jesus is just love and non-violence. I knew that as a little child. I've always known that. That's why I left. I want nothing to do with a war god. And Jesus is not the son of Yahweh, the only son. So I had to write some books. I got so upset. And I'm not a theologian or a great author. I'm a gardener. But the thing is, they gave this job to me because I am a gardener. I'm close to nature, as Jesus was and Buddha too. And I've always only seen Jesus as a gift from heaven, really, as love and non-violence. Ever since I was a little child, I've also been just massively attracted to his words, his parables. I've just loved them ever since I was young. I never looked at the Old Testament. The book of Revelations, rip out and burn it. It's rubbish. It's a cryptic crossword that you'll never figure out because it's designed to keep you occupied, to stop you becoming like Jesus. And in fact, it slanders Jesus and God. So once I saw what they were doing, I just was shocked. So what I did was I published the Gospels again, a new translation using the Greek interlinear, and I've removed a lot of the Jewish overlays and a lot of the really bad translations from the Greek where they picture Jesus to be some sort of brutal, judge and stuff. That's all out. But all the main points of Jesus' loving teachings are in the Gospels of Jesus Unplugged. And instead of using God the Father, I use loving spiritual creator, because that's what Jesus said she is, a spirit and only love and a creator. So I'm trying to make this much more universal and much more modern in a sense that it's more intelligent and logical and also still totally spiritual. So that's out there. You can buy that around the world. The teachings of Jesus Unplugged, they'll be published in the next couple of weeks around the world. Available, and that's where I really do point out the differences between the Jewish religion and the Christian religion to start with, and then clarify what Jesus was really saying, what he really meant. And you can see it in his words, it's all there, but you've got to remove the overlays, the Jewish overlays, and the poisonous stuff that's been put in there to take you away from understanding that Jesus was only love and non-violence. The loving spiritual life force that he was using was only love and non-violence. Heaven is a place of love and non-violence. So guess how you and I have to be to get into that place? Love and non-violence. It's that logical. Contact me at jcinfolks@gmail.com, and I'd be interested to hear what you think about my personal beliefs based on knowing Jesus all my life as a beautiful, loving, non-violent child of a heavenly spiritual world. And we've got two bodies, one spiritual, one's flesh. That's the teachings book, and briefly on the back of the book it sums up the general dialogue in the book. The spiritual teachings of Jesus are a universal calling to all human children on earth to awaken into our spiritual body and to identity of love and non-violence before our dualistic body and mind of the flesh dies and returns to the earth. Only our spiritual body and soul live on. We must prevent the dualistic mind of our earthly body of flesh from controlling us and become at one with our spiritual mind, filled only with the loving life force of our loving spiritual creator. That's the two bodies. Then our two bodies, one made of the earth and one formed of spirit, can be in harmony at one in purpose to bring the spiritual love and peace of heaven to earth for all children. Only true spiritual children of light and love can enter the heavenly spiritual world. All those children divided within themselves between love and hatred cannot enter. The words of Jesus can awaken and transform us. Very true. I say a prayer every day that I've created because of my illness. It's quite life-threatening. So I needed to have a prayer that made sure I focus all the time back into my spiritual body that's going to leave anyway whenever my body dies. My horse, I call our bodies horses, they carry us. We're like spiritual riders on a horse, an earthly horse, at one in purpose, until our horse dies and we have to dismount. So our spiritual body leaves. So I wanted a prayer that was sort of expanded on the Our Father prayer, the Lord's Prayer, expanded on that in a way that helps me focus on being just a spiritual child of love. This is the prayer I came up with, and I'm happy to share it with you. If you email me, I'll send you a PDF copy of it. Daily prayer to center yourself into spirit. I must say, of course, I call God she. It's mainly, well, for two reasons. The word she in English has both the male and female pronoun in the one word. She, he, and she. He is only male. And also we've had a very bad poisoning about who this divine being is because of the Jewish overlay Yahweh, this male figure, war god, and loving sometimes. It's just, you got to cut ties with that. So you got to cut ties with the Jewish religion if you're a Christian. Just forget about it for a while. Look at something else. Look at Buddhist teachings or anything else. So this is the prayer. So I use she, but of course you can use he. And if you want a copy sent to you, I'll print it out as he instead of she. Just let me know. As I rest upon this earth, the Holy One, she will give birth to who I really am, awakening me from clay and sand, a spiritual child of the divine, with only her love that fills my mind. To every creature I will be kind in every single land, for this is truly who I am. A spiritual child of the loving spiritual creator in the heavenly spiritual world, born out of the earth to bring her love to children in need and help guide them home to heaven as she's guided me. Through the spiritual way and teachings that Jesus gave us to be, just as he, a spiritual child of love on earth. So this tries to remind myself, I'm trying to remind myself, Christopher, you're just a spiritual child of love and nothing else. And this spiritual body of God's going to be in the presence of this spiritual life force when your horse dies, when your physical body dies, earth body dies. It's only temporary, we know that. Jesus said this as well. Feed it to the vultures, he said, when it's finished. There's nothing in it. So my spiritual body has to be ready, and she's only love, that world's only love. So I've got to try to be loving and non-violent now to be ready to be in her presence, or God's presence. So moving on to the book now, we're up to chapter 16. Now this is the divine law of reaping what we sow. Jesus and God do not throw you into hell. Jesus and the spiritual loving being. They don't do that. They bring you out of hell, try to stop you going to hell. They'll do everything they can to try to bring you into your true spiritual identity. But if you choose to become a shadow figure, a beast of the flesh a warmonger or something, that false identity will eventually have to be broken to pieces, and that's when you reap what you sow, because underneath is your true identity, but you've covered it in filth, murder, war, etc. And that's the reaping what you sow. I've written about it in a way that's based on her love never stops shining on you. As Jesus said, her love shines on the good and on the evil equally. So using Jesus' words and just intelligent logic, my father was a brilliant, clear-minded engineer, mechanical engineer. My mother was a brilliant, intelligent Christian woman of faith, but she had intelligent faith. Now, she didn't care about the Jewish religion or the book of Revelations at all. She was just interested in this beautiful dynamic of love that Jesus taught, which leads to this loving creator. And she was really beautiful and very intelligent too. So I've got the best of both worlds. My father was a practical manifestation of love. He employed people in his business, so they were fed and clothed and paid off their mortgage thanks to him. My mother, on the other hand, was just totally spiritual. Everyone loved her. So she didn't have to run a business or get stressed out by anything like that. So I've got this beautiful spiritual mother and this beautiful manifestation of material love on earth, my father, Jim and Lorraine. So I've got the beautiful combination, which is we have to have anyway, and Jesus taught that. Love has to be balanced. We have to manifest material love for the poor and the homeless and the sick and the needy. And then we also have to stop wars, demonstrate against the armaments industry and all armies in the world. Don't join the armies. We don't get involved in that. We're spiritual children of love. But we have to be spiritual to receive the inspiration and the life force from heaven in our own spiritual body to bring that alive. So we're ready to be in heaven. It has to be a living spiritual body. If you're in the flesh, it just dies, rots and stinks. That's death. So you don't want to be fully associating yourself with that. That's the way you manifest the spiritual love that's in your body, your spiritual body. So your spiritual body has to manifest it through the physical body, temporarily. But if you're not manifesting it, there's a problem. That means your spiritual body is weak. Maybe even like Putin and Netanyahu and the Russian army and the Israeli army and Hamas and all the mass murderers of Satan in the world. They're all Satan's army, all of them. They're all wearing the same Satan uniform. They've got a big yes written on it and they can't even see it. Satan's children. They don't even see it. They will after they die. Too late then. The thing is, they're not manifesting any love from heaven. They've moved out of their spiritual body, out of their spiritual identity, and they're living out of a false, fake shadow identity, all based on the flesh, power of the flesh, gun, bomb, material. All flesh dies, rots and stinks. They're investing in a death thing. They're giving death, so what do you expect? So the divine spiritual law of reaping what you sow, I've tried to talk about it in a way which is probably a bit different, but it's also based on Jesus' words anyway, but I'm trying to find a way to express it which helps us realise that this is very real, that these children are going to suffer, these murderers, these mass murderers in the wars, killing each other, killing innocent people and all the rest of it. They are really going to suffer after their body dies. But to believe in it, you have to be spiritual. If you're not spiritual, you won't believe in it and go on killing. So I've tried my best, so see what you think. It's a bit long. Divine spiritual law of reaping what we sow. So this is a divine spiritual law. It just exists. Buddha taught it, Jesus taught it. Jesus explained that the source of our perfect spiritual body, mind and soul, empowered only by love, comes forth from a spiritual being and creator of perfect love. And because her love shines forever on all her children, both good and evil equally, as Jesus himself said, she can never harm any of them in any way whatsoever. Our loving spiritual creator that Jesus was at one with does not commit infanticide, killing her own spiritual children, like the two-headed God of the Jews does. And I always put this in because, see, this is the slander, the stinking slander that the Jewish Christian churches are teaching. It's wrong. It's evil. I shouldn't teach it. I got out because of it. Matthew 10:14. Jesus taught at the end of the lost sheep parable, "It is not the will or intention of your loving spiritual creator in the heavenly spiritual world that even one of these littlest lost ones with the least spiritual life should be destroyed." So even the lost sheep that Jesus had to, the parable is, they had to go to great lengths to bring this sheep back. But it wasn't destroyed because it got lost, because it was doing evil. But there is a reaping what you sow. There are consequences for all these murderers and warmongers. They've got no idea the hell they're going into. Jesus is correct when he says there'll be wailing and gnashing of teeth. That's a fairly poetic way of talking about the way they'll all be screaming. But it's a different type of hell than what people think, I think. Any Judeo-Christian who wrongly teaches that our loving spiritual creator does murder her own children who have fallen into darkness by throwing them into hell is a Jewish believer in the Jewish two-headed God. They are not a Christian believer in the one divine loving spiritual creator of Jesus. However, there is perfect justice both for the evil and the good and everyone in between, called the divine spiritual law of reaping what we sow. Jesus warns us about reaping what we sow when he says to the man he healed, "You are physically well now, but do not sin lest something worse happens to you." Jesus knew spiritual sickness can lead us into the burning realizations of hell experiences after death, which are far worse than just having a lame leg for a while on earth. This spiritual power of reaping as we sow is completely neutral, like a mirror that simply reflects back to us what we created with our life on earth to experience ourselves. Those who created love receive love and awaken in the heavenly spiritual world of love. Those who created suffering receive suffering and must undergo cleansing before they can enter heaven. Jesus stated this very clearly when he taught, "With what measure you give to others, that is the measure you shall receive." It's a warning for all the warmongers. And for those of us trying to be loving, keep going. Make as much love as you can while you're here. This is the same teaching of Buddha regarding karmic consequences of our actions, words and thoughts that also affect our next life. Our loving Creator and Jesus are not our judges, as Judeo-Christians wrongly teach, but only want to love us to heaven. As Jesus said, "If anyone hears my teachings and does not do them, I do not judge him, for I did not come to judge the world, but to save it." We can hurt ourselves, but they will never hurt us, for they only love us. We are all our own judges, and we also create our own suffering or loving reward we shall receive after death, through our own free will actions while alive. This was the whole point of Jesus' teaching. We must become spiritual children of love and non-violence now, while we have the chance, if we wish to enter a spiritual world of love, after our body of temporary flesh dies and returns to the earth, from which it is formed. Many children do not believe this spiritual law exists or has any effect on us after we die because they have never seen it. That is like saying gravity does not exist because we cannot see it, yet all children come under its effect. A strong spiritual belief in a heavenly spiritual world of love that we can go to after death is a powerful shield against doing any wrong while here on earth, by knowing we shall all reap as we have sown. But the warmongering murderers hold no such belief, and are therefore in great danger of falling into the evil trap that will send them into their own living hell after death. The reaping what we sow river. This reaping as we sow spiritual law is like a river that never stops flowing between the shore of the heavenly spiritual world and the shore of the material earth world that we must all cross over to reach the heavenly shore. Those who have been filled with our loving Creator spiritual life force and lived out of it by loving other children throughout their life and while on earth in a body of flesh, simply walk across the water in their spiritual body after the death of their flesh to enter the heavenly shore. Just as Jesus walked on the water through the spiritual loving life force, empowering his fully awoken spiritual body, which carried his body of flesh. He overcame all temptations to do wrong and so had no adventitious filth weighing him down. And it is the same for all good spiritual children of our loving Creator who come alive and live out of their loving spirit. Each child crossing the river has a different spiritual level of awakening, of light and love, mixed with some possible unresolved negativities produced from time to time by our shadow ego identity we may fall into. Most of us have a mixture of the goodness of white, maybe a few black spots with grey tones in between. Only the white areas of our life are truly spiritual. The black areas are any serious wrongdoings, and the grey areas are the other less serious intensities of our wrongdoings. For example, our white elements are all the selfless loving we have given to others. The light grey elements may be just something like lying about being sick to get out of work. Stealing directly from others is a darker grey. Assaulting another child is very dark grey, until killing another child of our loving Creator is black. All the grey and black areas we have accumulated that cover our spiritual body and soul mind of love must be cleansed before we can enter heaven, and they all cause us to suffer after death to varying degrees. Those of us who are mostly white but with some small grey areas and no black will enter the river in a shallow place with the water only up to our ankles or knees. The waters contain the spiritual truth of each of our lives on earth. We will undergo the cleansing of these grey areas covering our spiritual bodies and souls by experiencing any suffering we cause to others or our own spiritual life as the spiritual waters wash over us. But because hopefully we were mostly white and lived out of spiritual love, we should pass through the experiences saddened and remorseful for doing those wrongs, but with no stronger levels of burning, hellish realizations. We will not be overwhelmed by our remorse, and I pray we will be allowed to reach the yonder shore of the heavenly spiritual world in short time, ready to enter. Those of us who have less white, a lot more shades of grey, and some black, will enter the river waist deep and have to struggle to reach yonder shore, for the experiences these children undergo will be of an increased intensity, matching the increased suffering they cause to themselves or others. They will be deeply saddened and remorseful for the bad things they did, and will experience longer and greater levels of burning realization pains that equal those they caused to other children. It will take longer for them to cross over as they struggle through these experiences of suffering, and they may be frightened. They will be swept away downstream before they reach the shore. This is the arising of the burning realizations and fear they have created for themselves to undergo equal in intensity to what they cause to other children while in the body of flesh. They can form the torture and darkness of their own living hell they have created for themselves, depending on the amount of evil they have covered their spirits of love in. Those of us who have almost no white, numerous dark shades of grey and a massive amount of black covering our beautiful spiritual bodies and souls of love in layers of stinking evil and filth through our own free will, sink like a millstone and are swept away downstream by the river to be cleansed of our evil and filth for as long as it takes. The flowing spiritual waters washing over them will reveal every single evil act they committed, and every single suffering experience they caused to others will now be their suffering, and they cannot escape it, for they have no body of flesh anymore. These children have entered at the deepest part of the river, and the burning realizations they must undergo will be intense and cause great suffering and agony as they experience the exact suffering, agony or deaths that they caused other children to experience. And the darkness they are in is caused by the evil filth of each evil act they have covered their spirits in, preventing the loving light of their loving spiritual creator reaching their spirits. See, they create their own darkness by cutting off her love and light. These are the warmongers, armies of soldiers who murder, violent gangs, and anyone who has deliberately created a false shadow identity of darkness and evil to live out of, destroying the lives of other children in any way. These darkest ones who thought they were so powerful and strong on earth will now be brought to their knees filled with extreme fear and frightened they will suffer for what they may seem like an eternity for what they did, cut off from heaven and true life. There will indeed be wailing and gnashing of teeth as they scream and cry out in agony and hell of their own making. You have to understand this is done in the presence of full knowledge, in the presence of this spiritual world. They now realize what it was all about. It's too late. That's part of the hell. Suffering is limited by a love for us. Suffering is not eternal and never ending, as many Judeo-Christians teach. It is an indeterminate amount of time based on each individual's life. Jesus taught this in Matthew 18:33 when he said, "The wicked servant who was forgiven his debt by his master was thrown into prison and handed over to the torturers for not doing the same thing to a fellow servant who was indebted to him. And he would not be released until he repaid all of the debt he himself had incurred to his master." Our loving Creator cannot prevent this happening to you also if you do not forgive other children indebted to you. That was Jesus talking about having to forgive. And the trouble is you can be thrown into prison through the torturers if you do wrong things. Jesus clearly states that once we undergo the suffering of our debt or sin, and it is fully paid or fully experienced, we will be released from its effects of suffering, reaping as we have sown, each according to the severity of the evil we have done. So he's not released until the last sort of penny's been paid, the last evil act is experienced. Only then are you released from those evil things you did. You have to undergo them all. That's the cleansing. Our loving spiritual creator knows everything that has happened to every single child of hers and how it was caused. She knows the pain, agony and fear of every single child hurt, tortured or killed by another child, and which child of hers caused it, as she is omniscient and the creator of all of our spiritual bodies in our bodies of flesh. She only has to recreate that child's experience we hurt for us to experience it in its fullness. And it is those actual experiences of the child we hurt, injured or killed that we now have to experience ourselves that are called the torturers, in the words of Jesus. They're our own actions torturing us now, not other children. She creates these experiences through shining her love, light and truth on us when our spiritual body and soul come into her presence after we leave our body of flesh at the time of our death. Remember the words of Jesus, her sun rises equally on the evil and on the good. She is pure love, truth and true spiritual life, exposing any false shadow identities of darkness we may have created which cover our spirits in filth. She is the cornerstone that breaks our false identities to pieces to reveal our true spiritual identity, but that can be painful. A clean child of truth and spiritual love who dies and comes before her feels her warm love shine right into their soul as our loving Creator welcomes her child into heaven after their long earthly journey. Another child covered in filth and evil of their own making who dies and comes before her cannot receive her same warm love shining into their soul, for they have blocked it with their own filth. And they are devastated knowing they have caused this to themselves and must remain in darkness and suffering until they are cleansed by her love shining on them. Her love for them ignites the burning realizations of their own wrongdoings they must now endure until they are all consumed through their own suffering in the light of her truth and love. You see, she's not hurting them. She's showing them what they did by getting them to experience all the murders, all the thousands of people that have been killed in Gaza and Russia and Ukraine and Hamas killing people in Israel, the West Bank. She'll be able to, every one of those soldiers, all those leaders, they will experience the death of everyone they killed. That's what's going to happen. They don't know it. That's going to be beyond any hell on this earth. It is this outer covering of filth we created over what is left of our spirit and soul and are now imprisoned in that is revealed to us by her, by being in her beautiful, loving presence. Too late to say sorry and ask for forgiveness and wash the filth away with the words of Jesus and her loving spiritual waters. The filth has to be set alight or illuminated by her love, truth and light shining on us, so we realize the full extent of any evil or wrongdoing that we did. And her light and love shines on the layers of filth and illuminates them to be cleansed through each painful, burning realization experience we must undergo layer by layer, sin by sin, one by one, for however long it takes until they are all removed. Now they think about 100,000 people have been murdered in Gaza by the Israeli army, Netanyahu. 100,000 deaths. That's what all those Israeli murderers are going to undergo. Just as Hamas have killed 1,200 Israelis, they're going to undergo that. Putin's going to undergo the Death Sea scores, etc., etc. They can't escape it. They have to say sorry now, but they're not doing that. But it is limited to the amount of filth needed to be removed. She never commits infanticide, killing her child's spirit or soul, as some Judeo-Christians wrongly teach. Instead, she sets us free, but not before we pay the price, reaping as we have sown, to be set free. All this could be avoided by not sinning in the first place, or by saying sorry to her and any children we have hurt, and feeling sincere remorse for any wrongdoings we have committed, and asking her to forgive us. Then we are cleansed of all sin by her love for us as her child of truth, but we must try not to sin again. So who is destroyed by our loving Creator? Some Judeo-Christians still teach that our loving spiritual Creator in Jesus will destroy or kill all her children who have fallen into becoming false shadow figures of darkness for all the evil they did to other children. But this is not the teaching of Jesus. What is destroyed is the false shadow identity of darkness that they became, which buried and covered their true spiritual identity beneath. In the Gospels of Jesus Unplugged, in the wicked tenant's parable, Jesus tells the Jewish leaders they are rejecting him as the cornerstone of a new understanding of our loving Creator. I translate the following saying of Jesus in this way when he says, "The very stone which the builders rejected has become the head and primary cornerstone, and is our loving Creator's doing." He's saying, I am the cornerstone of the new understanding of the divine spiritual way to heaven and what heaven is and who this divine being is. I'm the cornerstone. You can build a whole new religion on me of love and non-violence. So he's telling them that. It's been rejected. It's a quote. He who comes against this stone, his false identity will be broken to pieces, and on whomever this stone rests, it will winnow him of his sins and reveal his true spiritual identity. Now, all Gospels in the world, the Jewish Christian ones, this is just a Christian translation, not a Jewish Christian. The Jewish Christian ones, but they slant it towards him being the son of the violent war god Yahweh, because the way they've translated the Greek incorrectly is simply to say he's the cornerstone. He who falls against the cornerstone will be broken to pieces, and whomever this cornerstone falls upon will be crushed. That's a complete inflection towards he being violent, God being violent. And of course the word for crushed, that comes from the winnowing. It's the Greek, the proper word is winnow, not crushed. When they harvested the grain, they'd put it on a blanket, for example, or rug, and they'd beat it with sticks to loosen the grain, the good grain, from the husks that were useless and no good, of no value, like sins. And then they'd wait for a windy day and they'd throw it up in the air on the blanket, and the wind would blow all the rubbish, all the chaff out of the husks. The husks would be blown away, and you'd be left just with the heavy grain, the good food that gave your body life. It's a beautiful analogy, that winnowing. So they should, all Gospels, all Bibles in the world, all Gospels, they should change that. Because the correct word is, you'll be winnowed of your sins. So there's inflections to make Jesus and God seem like the Yahweh violent war God. In my Gospels Unplugged book, I make sure I revert that back to truthfully and respectfully acknowledge the real meaning of what he was saying. I don't slander him. So he breaks your false identity apart to reveal your true identity. That's what he's saying. You can see how they've perverted him. Anyway, so there you go. So it's very important that you get a good translation of the Gospels. So he does not break or crush you, as most Bibles say, many Judeo-Christians falsely teach, but releases you from sin so you can become your true spiritual identity of love and enter heaven. The word crush, as I say, it means when you're beating the grain, that's why they use the word crush. But they do it deliberately, to make him out to want to smash and destroy people. They shouldn't do that. Jesus talked about the false dark identities when he said in Matthew 22:13, "And the king said to the attendants, bind him hand and foot and cast him into outer darkness. In that place there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth." In Matthew 25:30, "And cast the worthless servant into outer darkness. In that place there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth." In Matthew 8:12, "While others will be thrown into the outer darkness. In that place there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth." These children are being cast into the outer darkness of their own false shadow identity that they created from their own egotistical imagination to commit evil. That's the darkness, their own shadow identity that they've surrounded their spiritual soul in. They've now got to move into that while it's being destroyed and feel it dying, because the death of that is the death of everyone they caused. Shocking. It surrounds their true inner spiritual identity of light and love with dark evil layers of filth made up from the evil actions they created, which now cuts them off from receiving the love and light into their spirits and souls from the loving Creator that is still shining upon them. So her love's still shining on them, but now they're in the middle of this pitch black darkness of their own making. That's their shadow identity. That's what Jesus breaks to pieces. If you let him, he'll do it before if you do it before your body of flesh dies, you'll be safe. If you wait until you die, too late. You'll have to undergo the burning realizations. And they will be very real. Don't worry about that. That's my understanding. You will experience death of all the people you've murdered. Okay, so they're cast into the darkness of their own shadow figure, devoid of spiritual light and love. But her love still shines on them, waiting patiently, maybe thousands of years till they finish suffering. It is this false shadow identity of darkness that is destroyed and dies as her love and light reveals the truth about all the evil and dark things they committed that gave birth and life to this false shadow identity that they became. And as each evil suffering they caused is experienced now by themselves, they feel their shadow identity slowly being torn apart, agonizingly dying, and there is wailing and gnashing of teeth as they realize the full implication of what they did to themselves and others. That's the burning hell. This is the hellish experience of burning realizations that we cannot stop until they are all passed through, and there is no one else in your hell and darkness, just you. For all those children are propelled into darkness by their own doing. The hellish experiences are made all the worse by finally realizing what life on earth was all about. You threw away your spiritual eternal life of love in the heavenly spiritual world, where many of the children you hurt or killed may now be, for a filthy dark shadow figure devoid of spiritual life, and are now paying the price for what you did to others. But Jesus also points out that those torturous experiences you will undergo, that you created by causing suffering to others, will stop once you have experienced every single one of them. The Greek word often used for eternal or everlasting in the Gospels is aionios, which generally means lasting for a period of time which is indeterminate. That's the correct thing Jesus is saying when they use that Greek word in the Jewish Christian Bibles. He's really saying you'll suffer for an indeterminate amount of time. As we all have different degrees of spiritual cleansing that needs to be done after passing through our death experience, the time is different for all of us, so it has to be called indeterminate. It's not just everyone goes to hell. You stole a lolly. Oh, well, that's a sin. You're in hell. I killed 100,000 Palestinians, isn't it? Oh, you're in hell too, the same hell. No, it's an indeterminate amount of time based on, of course, the amount of evil you've committed. It has to be that way for it to be just. So, as we all have different degrees of spiritual cleansing that needs to be done after passing through our death experience, the time is different for all of us, so it has to be called indeterminate. It is not eternal, meaning never-ending suffering caused by Jesus and our loving Creator, as some Judeo-Christians wrongly teach. Stop teaching that. Stop slandering them. Study His Word for a while and stop looking at the Jewish religion and the book of Revelations. Jesus again refers to this limited spiritual time that it takes for cleansing us of our debt of wrongdoing against the way of love in Matthew 5:25. Jesus said, "Make friends quickly with your opponent for your wrongdoings against him while you are still here with him, so that you may not be handed over to the judge, and the judge to the officer, and you be thrown into prison. Truly I say to you, you will not come out of there until you have paid up the last cent you owe." Again, Jesus is telling, look, say sorry now, and you won't be suffering in this dark, hellish, burning realization. After your body of flesh dies, you'll still be alive, but you'll be in a living hell. Say sorry now while you've got the chance. Netanyahu, Putin, Russian army, Israel army, Hamas, whoever. You're all Satan's children. Say sorry before you die and make amends for your wrongdoings, and you will not end up in a state of hellish burning realizations after your body of flesh dies. Of course, when we say sorry, you've got to really feel it. I mean, if you don't feel it, it's not a true repentance. Jesus uses the term every last cent to indicate every last wrongdoing not corrected and cleansed before our body of flesh dies will have to be accounted for and experienced by our spirit and soul identity until they are all cleansed. The judge is the mirror or river called reaping what we sow that reveals our wrongdoings to us, and the force and intensity of them propel us or throw us into any painful cleansing experience we must undergo. Our loving Creator and Jesus never throw us into suffering of any kind, as they are always trying to bring us out of suffering. We do that to ourselves, while they wait patiently and lovingly for us to pass through it. Fate of the warmongers. We can always use the warmongers as an extreme example, because on earth they are probably the most extreme. If we think of how many of our loving Creator's children Hitler was responsible for killing in World War II, it totals somewhere between 29 and 35 million. Imagine if you had to experience every single one of those children's deaths exactly the way they died, caused by you. Many died quickly, while many lingered in agony before dying. If the average dying time was just 1 hour, and 1 million hours equals 114 years, then 32 million children dying would total 3,648 years of continuous dying. This would be the time Hitler has to endure constant dying over and over again until it is all experienced. That would be perfect justice in exact accordance with what we cause. And as Hitler would have only been undergoing these deaths continuously for the last 80 years since he died, this being 2025, he still has another 3,568 years of continuous hellish burning realizations of dying to undergo and experience that he caused before it is all over. Not to mention the millions left with bodies that were seriously damaged, causing them years of suffering they had to endure before they finally died because of Hitler. And all those left with mental damage due to the war. We could probably add another 3,000 years of continuous suffering for those children's pain. All his heartless Nazi soldiers, devoid of spiritual love, will of course reap what they caused personally as well. What do you think will happen to the Hamas killers, Hezbollah killers, Putin and the Russian killers, Netanyahu and the Israeli killers, and even the Ukraine killers, and all warmongers, when they all die after killing children of our loving spiritual Creator? Will they be welcomed into the heavenly spiritual world of love and peace, carrying their satanic guns and drones and bombs? Or are they all heading the same way as Hitler? Jesus warned everyone, "He who lives by the sword shall destroy themselves by the sword." They have no belief in spiritual consequences after death, especially if they worship a war god, so I give them this warning. Many children of our loving Creator sadly commit suicide here on earth. Some have suffered such horrific traumas that they have lost hope and the will to live, and kill their body of flesh to release themselves from the mental torture they are experiencing. Others are suffering from a chemical imbalance in the brain chemistry, often due to undiagnosed neurotoxic infections, which cause a very deep mental experience of serious black depression, which never stops. Robbed of all joyful experiences, the endless mental torture and depression drives them to kill their own body, to escape it. It's just mental depression. Their body's not bleeding or anything, but they kill their body to escape it. That's how evil, that's how horrific it is, depression. Can they? All of us who have suffered serious depression know about this. Never judge a child who takes their own life. Only our loving Creator knows what they are going through. They will all be released from that torture once the body of flesh dies, and hopefully they will enter the spiritual heavenly world in their spiritual body if they have lived a life of love until this tragedy destroyed their lives. But when the evil-minded children of Satan die, dark shadow figures, beasts of the flesh, the warmongers who propel themselves into the outer darkness and hellish burning realizations caused by what they did to other children, they can never kill their body of flesh to stop the mental torture because they have no body of flesh to kill anymore. Too late to say sorry. The spirit undergoes the suffering. Buddha would say it is their mind that is suffering, their own karma, not their flesh, and it may possibly take place in another body they are born into in another lifetime on earth. Jesus would say it is their spirit suffering, not their flesh. Both of these great spiritual teachers warned about this same spiritual truth of reaping what we sow. If children have to take drastic action to kill their own bodies on earth to stop the mental torture caused by illness or trauma, which is not their fault, how horrific and agonizing do you think it will be for those who are trapped in a similar living hell of their own making, but can never escape it until all the debt is paid and experienced down to the last bit of suffering they cause to others? Be warned, just as heaven exists, so does hell. Love your way to heaven or hate your way to hell. It's your choice. Although I am unsure how our loving Creator deals with them once all their evil, false identity is cleansed from their spirit and soul through their own suffering, and they feel the warmth of her love and light shining upon them again, I'm reminded of something Jesus said regarding debts. Jesus said that those who had the greatest debt but were forgiven loved the most. Although these children of evil will have to pay a very high price of suffering for their debt, maybe the same principle applies when their living hell is all over and they see and feel our loving Creator still loving them. Perhaps they will be the greatest devoted children of all in heaven towards her, incapable of ever sinning again after going through a living, brutal hell of their own making. A very hard way to have to come to heaven, but I would hope they get there at the end of their self-inflicted torture and suffering in hell. Dramatic warning about reaping as you sow. In Mark 9:43, Jesus gave this very dramatic warning to demonstrate the divine spiritual law of reaping what we sow. Jesus taught, "Woe to this world because of temptations to sin, for circumstances in this world can cause them to come into existence, but woe to that one who brings the temptation to sin into this world." If you commit a wrongdoing through using your hand or foot in an evil way and cannot stop doing so, it would be better to cut them off to prevent yourself doing further wrongdoings. Then, by maiming your temporary body of flesh to prevent your soul and spirit from performing wrongdoings anymore in this evil way, you will rise after the death of your body of flesh into the fullness of your perfect spiritual body in heaven. But if you continue performing wrongdoings using your hands and feet until your body of flesh dies, you will propel your spirit and soul to enter the hell of burning realizations from which there is no escape. Not until your soul has experienced all the wrongdoings you have committed to others or yourself. Those who enter there will wail and cry aloud. Think of the warmongers who use their hands and fingers to pull the trigger that kills, or launches a missile or drone, or flies a plane to drop bombs on children, or uses the foot to drive a tank, only to kill other children. Better they were born lame, so they could not commit such evil. If you commit wrongdoing through using your eye in an evil way and cannot stop doing so, it would be better for you to pluck it out to prevent yourself performing wrongdoings again. Then, by maiming your temporary body of flesh to prevent your spirit and soul from performing wrongdoings in this evil way again, you will enter into the fullness of perfect spiritual life after the death of your body of flesh. But if you continue to use your eye in an evil way, it will propel your spirit and soul to enter the hell of burning realizations after your body of flesh dies, from which there is no escape. Not until your soul has experienced all the wrongdoings you committed against yourself and others, there will be wailing and crying. Think of the warmongers who use their eyes to get children in the sights of their gun to blow them away, or the ones who fly drones to zero in on children to kill them using their eyes. Better they were all born blind. That's what Jesus is saying. While Jesus in no way wants us to actually cut off limbs or pluck our eyes out if we sin with them, he is just providing a very dramatic insight into how extreme the torturous experiences can be that we will have to undergo in the hell of burning realizations caused by our own evil actions if we do not stop sinning. This is a very serious warning he is giving us, and we would be foolish to ignore it, as he only wants to save us from any hellish suffering like this. All hellish experiences are caused by cutting ourselves off from our loving spiritual creator in the heavenly spiritual world and our loving spiritual life force that gives eternal life to our spiritual bodies and souls. This is the greatest hell of all. We must remember one of the most important spiritual instructions Jesus gave us to follow to reach the heavenly spiritual shore of love and peace in safety. Do not fear those who can kill your body of flesh, but can do no more to you. Rather fear sin, which can destroy both your body of flesh and seriously injure your spiritual body and soul of love after you die. With what measure you give out to others, it will be measured back to you. Are you listening, warmongers? Or are you too far in the dark now? Jesus was a pacifist, a spiritual child of our loving spiritual creator, and is waiting for us all to commit fully to our spiritual life of love and non-violence and follow his spiritual way of peace and love to join him in the heavenly spiritual world. All bodies of flesh in the end are just food for the vultures. They do not rise from the grave. Love your way to heaven in your spiritual body and soul mind of love by becoming at one with them now as Jesus did. And I pray we will all meet there one day. Even the warmongers can turn around now and go back into their spiritual body, but they've got a massive, massive, massive problem now. They've killed tens and tens of thousands of children. God is love. Love is life. Be careful what seeds you sow during your lifetime here on earth. For the fruits of love are very sweet, but the fruits of evil are bitter indeed. Well, that's my take on the reaping what you sow based on Jesus' own words that she is love, this divine loving spiritual creator. A spiritual body can only be love, and we've got two bodies. So I talk about that in the teachings book, how Jesus explains you've got two bodies, flesh and spirit. You've got two identities of shadow and light, and there's the problems, there's the choices we have to make. There are two roads you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. In that famous Led Zeppelin song, Stairway to Heaven, so by Robert Plant and Jimmy. So, but that's true. There are two roads here. It's a dualistic world. Choose the road of love and non-violence. What greater thing can you do for this world than that? Heaven knows we need that, love and non-violence in this world right now. Don't join in with the murdering dark shadow figures of Satan. Don't join them. Don't support them in any way whatsoever. Ostracize them if you want to, in a sense of like, let them know they're not welcome. As they are evil, stinking, filthy, satanic murderers. They're not welcome. Regretfully, many people support them. Well, that's the reaping what we sow as I understand it. Her love shines. It's a bit like a simple way of thinking. It was Mother Teresa dies and Adolf Hitler dies. They both come before the loving spiritual life force. Adolf Hitler is covered in 30 million, 20 million deaths. The darkness around his spiritual body is so deep and large now, it's like, a very, very, very large ball of filth beyond any planet in this solar system. Mother Teresa comes with no filth on her at all, let's say. All she did is love the children of the loving spiritual creator who had fallen down, who were dying, who were sick, who were abandoned, who were outcast lepers in the gutters of the streets of Calcutta. She just brought this beautiful, powerful love to them. Sacrificed her life, you might say, to do that. Gave her life to it. She feels the same love as Hitler does next to her. She just feels the love embrace her completely. She just feels this enormous love and enters into this other spiritual world, and she's in a spiritual body. Her other earth body's back there. They're going to bury it soon. Hitler, meanwhile, can't even feel her love, but he knows she's there. And he now knows what he did. And he now realizes what's coming. Every single death he caused is now his to experience. And he knows it. There's the hell, you see. He knows it. There's the hell. And it starts happening, layer after layer. As I say, thousands of years for that poor soul. In our terms, thousands. But it would seem like eternity. Pitch black. Never any light. Death after death after death that you've caused. Experiencing every one. Just black everywhere. No form, no body. But you're experiencing the death of the child you killed. Literally. I mean literally. The pain, the agony, the screaming is now yours. Because you caused it to the other child. Now that is a real hell. That really is. Don't underestimate the power of the loving spiritual creator. She's spiritual. It's a spiritual world. This is just material, dirt and flesh and chemicals. The whole universe is just dirt and stuff, chemicals, physics. Spiritual life force is way above that, way more purified. That's why it's so powerful, because it's pure love. That's why it's so powerful. It's pure love. But its power is to just love. But it's also truth and light. So it reveals all false, lying identities, revealing them to you and me as what they really are, like stinking, murdering filth in the case of the warmongers. And then you have to undergo that realization in the presence of her, but you're covered in darkness. It sounds a bit complex, but it's not really. Because you've got to understand the power of the spiritual loving being is way beyond anything here. And but she's only love, you see. So, and truth, you see, and the light shining on you is not only the light of love, but it's the light of truth. So as long as when my body dies, my physical earth body dies and rots and stinks and gets buried or burnt, whatever, feed it to the vultures, it doesn't matter, there's no life in it. I've left it the same way Jesus left his. He didn't go back into it. Then I'm in the presence of that perfect, pure love. So how close am I to someone like Mother Teresa or anyone you know? My mother was a beautiful soul, just perfect, the most perfect soul I've ever known. Am I as good as her? I'd have to say no. I'm the son of a saint. I'm not a saint. But I would like to be like her more, or like, or Jesus, of course, is the role model. He's the teacher. He's our great friend. He says, look, I'll show you how to understand you've got a spiritual body. I'll teach you how to experience it. Once you experience it, you'll understand everything I do. And then you'll understand what I'm talking about, and you'll understand her and love and the spiritual world and how to get there. And then share that with other children. So I'll teach you how to wake up to this spiritual identity. I'll teach you how to move into it. I'll teach you the characteristics you need to start to practice, which will bring your spiritual body alive. It's his words that save you. He helps you understand how you have to behave in this world. Without his words, how will you know how to behave? It's his words that save you. And he said that 17 times in the 5 Gospels, including Thomas. It's not his blood that saves you. That's a different matter. That's his physical body on the cross dying to show you you've got a spiritual body. That's what he appeared to the disciples in. That's a different thing altogether he's showing you there. 2 different bodies. That's what the cross was all about. You've got 2 different bodies. I'll let them kill this one. I'll appear to you in my spiritual eternal one. Then I'm going. I'll be there. Follow me. The last words in the Gospel of John of Jesus are simply 2 words. Follow me. He did not say, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. That's not there. Follow me to where I've gone. He said that. So there you go. That's the reaping what you sow. That's my take on it. That's my understanding based on Jesus' love and non-violence and the spiritual being of pure love. And I have to come into her presence. So this is the thing. You've got to concentrate on being clean yourself first. Remove the beam from your own eye before you remove the speck from your brother's, that sort of thing. I have to make myself as clean as I can first. But at the same time, help others and love your family and love friends and stuff like that. But even get better at doing it. Be more forgiving. Be more generous. Be more compassionate. Increase the love, increase it, increase the spiritual strength, and move into the identity. Let go of ego and greed and anything else, or hate. I hate these people, but I love those people. It's a matter of trying to help everyone become spiritual. We can hate the actions of the evil warmongers, but we have to understand they're already in deep, deep trouble. They're going to hell. We got to try to bring them out by warning them, stop doing that. You're going into hell after you die, and you'll be really, really in extreme suffering beyond anything you can imagine at the moment. And we have to, condemn what they're doing, but we've got to try to save them. So condemn the action, the evil, but try to save them and bring them out of it, get them back into their spiritual identity. Not easy to do. I'm not saying it's easy, but we must stand against them as spiritual children of love and non-violence. Shine the light, as Jesus said. Don't hide it under a basket. So I'm doing that now. This is my way. I'm just a gardener. See those lilies? They're picked from the garden. Fantastic. Really beautiful scent. I remember my father used to grow them all the time for around Christmas. They're Christmas lilies, they're called. Yeah, they bring back a lot of happy memories of Christmas time with the family who've all left. My parents and my sister Joan here at the main old home. There's only me left. So not to worry. It's all good. I'm not alone really. And none of us are. Heaven can always see you. Believe that. Love your way to heaven. Bye.